If you've watched the channel long enough, you'll know that I find pork loin to be the least interesting cut of meat. But the stuff is inexpensive, and sometimes that's all that matters. So today, I'm going to be brining and smoking a pork loin to see if I can make it into something delicious. So let's get started. So I want to start with a nice, simple, and flavorful brine. So, pork and apples go together so well that I'm going to use apple juice for the base, and that's 3 quarts of apple juice. And I'm going to add in 1/3 of a cup of plain salt and 2/3 a cup of brown sugar. And that's it. Now I'll just stir this together really well until that is thoroughly dissolved. Now let's bring in that pork loin. I just want to get that down into the brine and make sure it is fully submerged. You might want to put a little plate on top of there, but it wedges nicely into this container. And now this goes out into the refrigerator for a good 24-hour soak. Now let's put together a spice rub for the outside of that, and I'm going to start with 2 tablespoons of paprika. Now let's go with 1 tablespoon of some coarse ground black pepper. I'll bring in 1 teaspoon of cayenne for some bite. And we'll also bring in a teaspoon of garlic powder, as well as a teaspoon of onion powder. Now let's just stir that all together really well. I'll get that down into a little shaker bottle to make it easier to get onto that roast. And just shake this up and get everything mixed up really well. Now, after 24 hours, here is our pork loin, and you can tell by the liquid that there's definitely been some activity in there. The acid from the apple juice has kind of changed the color of the outside a bit, and that looks pretty good to me. So now I'm gonna pat off the excess liquid with some paper towels. Now I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna score that fat cap just lightly. Don't want to get into the meat, I just want to open that up a little to help the fat melt and get that rubbed down into there. It'd be really nice if they'd leave a thicker fat cap on these, but they trim them so tight these days. So if you're shopping for this, get the one with the thickest fat cap and you're gonna have a much more flavorful piece of pork. I'll flip it over and go the opposite direction to get a little crosshatch going on there. Now I've got some pre-cut lengths of string and I want to tie this roast up. It's kind of flat like this and I want to get it into round so it cooks more evenly. So I'll just get one of those under there, give it a couple of wraps around so it doesn't slip when I'm trying to tie the second knot. Pull that into round and cinch it up. And I will just continue down the length of this pork loin about every inch or inch and a half. There's a little loose flap of meat there. I'll trim that off so that doesn't burn out in the smoker. And now we'll give this a nice sensual rub down with some olive oil. Massage that in all around, and that'll help that rub stick and also help to keep the sugar in the rub from getting too dark as this cooks. Now let's season it up, and I'm going to start with a good sprinkling of salt and some sugar. Now we'll come in with that spice rub, and since I didn't put the salt or sugar in the rub, I could go really heavy with this. Get that on there thick, get a good coating so you get tons of flavor out of that. Just continue seasoning that up all the way around. Make sure you don't skip out on those ends. Those are going to be some special slices that you save for that certain someone.
Oh, me?
Now I'm going to put my temperature probe straight down into the middle. If I come in from the end, I'm going to end up with a little hole running through every slice, so just drive it right down into the side like this and into the thickest part of that you can hit. Now I've got my smoker preheated to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm using apple wood today because that is my favorite to use with pork. Put in my drip tray and we are off and running. Now I've got a little bottle here. I'm going to put together a little spritz to keep the outside of that from drying out too much and added some flavor too. So I'm going to use 2 parts of apple juice concentrate. I'm going to be about a half cup of that today. Now I'll use 1 part of apple cider vinegar. So we'll throw in a 1/4 cup of that. I'll just give that a little swirl, and then I'll go out about every 30 minutes and I'll spritz the outside of that pork loin really well. And that's going to add some nice flavor and help that get good and smoky too. So after about 2 hours and 45 minutes, I'm going for an internal temp of 150 degrees, and we are there. So now it's time to pull this and give that a good 10 or 15 minute rest before slicing. Now let's see how we did. I can tell you it smells absolutely incredible in here. We got a little bit of pink left in there, and to be honest, I actually like to pull mine a little earlier, but not everybody agrees with me, so this kind of medium doneness is good, and I can see that it's still nice and juicy. So let's get a taste of that, and I'm going to save that end piece because that would be cheating. Check out that bite. Right on. That has some fantastic flavor. The brine got in there really well. I can pick out a little bit of that apple. It's not super appley, but it's definitely just kind of got that sweet and salty and a little bit of tang to it. really excellent flavor. The rub did a really good job. Has a nice color to it. Picked up a lot of smoke, and it's got a nice little bite from the cayenne. Oh, wow. Well, it's not enough to convert me to a pork loin lover, but I don't think they get any better than this. And if you serve this up, nobody in their right mind is gonna complain. It's absolutely delicious, and it is a leaner cut of meat, so it's definitely more healthy than those ribs or some pork shoulder. Yeah, I really like this recipe. So, when times get tough, I know now I can always pick up a pork loin and make something that's pretty darn delicious. So I hope you give this a try, and I know you're gonna love it. Thanks for watching. Give me some of that end piece. Ooh, oh yeah.